All right, you ready?
Yeah, man.
All right, Buds Aplenty, episode 7. I think that's where we're at now. Time flies. We were just talking about this, how we couldn't believe it was already time for this episode. I have with me, some of you may know him, some of you back home in Salem may not know my friend here. I have Caesar Marciano Bravo.
I knew you were going to throw the government in there.
How are you?
I'm good, man. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very grateful for this time that you're spending with me. Taking time out of your day. I know you had a busy day at work, and appreciate it, man.
It's a pleasure. We don't get to hang out very often. The only place we ever get to hang out is Moe's. We go to Moe's like
That's true.
once a quarter, once probably every 3 months.
Yeah, we did have some scheduled Moe's appointments
where we just like running into each other and like, yo, we're gonna go to Moe's, and like a week later we were at Moe's and we just sat around and talked for 2 hours.
Yeah, and literally like 80% of the conversation is music.
Mm-hmm. Which is why whenever I wrote my schedule, I realized, wait, over half of the schedule is music.
Yeah, I realized that too when I was
that's like what our common interest is. We've always had a common interest in like music, and like our discussions always get higher level compared to like where most people discuss music.
Yeah, man, that's definitely true. When I think of speaking music with you, I think of Ball Hall and walking into your room and just sitting on your bed and talking to you about certain albums that came out and reminisce, man. Like you said earlier.
And I'll touch on this album later. Whenever we talk about our top albums from the last 6 years, I'll never forget whenever I came into your apartment and we shut off the lights, opened up your laptop, and we played Kanye's Runaway music video. We played it on your laptop, and that was the first time I'd seen it.
Really?
And I was like blown away. I was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life.
Wait, what apartment was that? I'm curious.
Oh, no, not your apartment.
Dorm?
At your dorm, yeah.
Dorm?
Back when you were living with Ross and Logan.
Oh, okay. Cause I was like, did you come? I was like, I don't remember that happening at... I got you now, I remember.
I did come to... The only apartment I ever went to was when you and Logan were still living together.
Lockfield?
Yeah, when you were at Lockfield. That's whenever we... you were borrowing my MIDI controller.
Yeah.
And we were trying to work on some music.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, the theme of Buds Aplenty is I'm here to just facilitate discussion. You're here to kind of talk on your interests, your repertoire, your whatever, is filling up your life right now. So, hate to put you on the spot. We're low prepared right now after my busy day at work, not sending you the schedule all week.
Yeah, you didn't send me the schedule, so
yeah, so that kind of puts you.
No, I was just joking. Not to throw you under the bus or anything.
We've thrown a lot of people under the bus. The first 6 episodes. That's all we do is just talk trash about people and how much we hate them. But if you want, we can kind of talk about just music in general, or we can, you can kind of talk about whatever you want to talk about. It's all up to you.
Sounds good. So yeah, the first point that you have here is music in general.
And just so you know, we will not talk about everything on our schedule.
Okay.
We never do. The first episode, I listed out 8 things for Avery and I to talk about. We talked about 2 from the schedule, and then he talked about vaping for 20 minutes.
Yeah, like a bunch of tangents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so tangents are very encouraged on this show. But if you want, we'll talk about music in general. What have you currently been listening to recently?
That's a really good question. I just told my roommate this the other day that for like the past 2 or 3 weeks, the only thing I've been listening to is myself.
Oh, because you're working on new music.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because I feel like when I listen to, in this like moment in my life when I'm listening to other people's music, I feel like I should be making my own.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why am I wasting time listening to other people's music? Don't get me wrong, I love listening to other music,
but
at this point,
of course,
I'm just in this like mindset.
It's kind of inspiring for you to like wanna. You see that, or you hear other people's music, and you're like, I could be doing this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I wasting my time spending it, absorbing their content whenever I can be building up my own content?
Yeah.
Totally understand. I was on the flip side whenever, like, we went through, you were always pretty active in writing music. I kind of had a stint for about a year or two where I wrote music, we recorded together a little bit. But whenever I was writing, I couldn't listen to music because it would throw off, I would want to emulate whatever I was listening to.
Yeah.
And that's like, especially as musicians, that's sometimes hard, especially for like those musicians that are really trying to first like get their start. Whenever you're first getting your start, you want to emulate at times what's big, what's popular, instead of having your own creative vision.
Yeah.
I thought I set the sound off. That's embarrassing. But I had that problem where I would, want to do whatever was the big deal, or whenever I would find an instrumental, I would want to emulate whoever's instrumental that was.
Yeah.
So you had to really find those obscure ones, or really like reach out to producers, because I was never a talented producer. I could never do it.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. I totally understand what you're saying about accidentally emulating another artist. Then that's one of the reasons why, and it's not even something that you listen to a song and you want to sound like that person. It kind of happens subconsciously. Especially if you're in the stage of making music, or in a stage of making music, and you're listening to something else, like, I feel like that might potentially influence you. So, I mean, that's kind of why I stay away, consciously and subconsciously, from other music in this moment, I guess.
You're one of the few people I know who have actually put out a cohesive project. You had your debut mixtape, Hello, My Name is Marciano. And that was pretty well known, whenever we were in college. It seemed like everyone, I came into college a little bit later than you, because of you were in Bridge, and then I wasn't in Bridge. And I remember Avery coming to me and it's like, yo, I got this friend, his name's Marciano, and he's got a mixtape. And I was like, yo, that's amazing. And we all thought it was like the greatest thing we'd ever let it grace our ears. Granted, I was still finding my music, so
yeah.
no shade, but it was cool for you to be able to always say that I have an actual completed project under my belt. What was it like to like be in the studio? What was it like to actually how do you feel after it's been 5-6 years since you actually finished it? How do you feel looking back on it? How do you like reminiscing on it? How did you feel like right after you completed it? Just kind of like the emotions of like completing and working on that album.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to answer all your questions because I have a lot of responses while you're talking. But there's a lot of I feel a lot of I forgot the word already. I feel accomplished, I guess. Like you said, I mean, I don't know many people who have a completed project either, and that was one of the things coming from my hometown, Lafayette, Indiana. Shout out. But that was one of the things coming from Lafayette. There was a lot of people I knew that rapped and who made songs, but I didn't really know anybody who came out, like you said, with a cohesive project. And I think it's interesting that you thought it was very talked about in our freshman year at IUPUI, because it was nothing compared to what it was back home in Lafayette.
Really?
The summer that I released it, yeah. It was minute compared to it. That summer of 2011, I often say, is one of the best times of my life because of that mixtape. I love, what's that?
Interjecting. Did you feel like a celebrity?
Low key, I kind of did, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. There were people from others, because I went to Lafayette Jefferson High School, and there were people from other schools and other school districts that were messaging me on Facebook, MySpace at the time, whatever, telling me how much they liked my music, people that I've never met. I mean, for God's sake, somebody I don't even know got a tattoo of lyrics that I wrote on his side, yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen that picture.
I have never seen that picture.
Yeah.
That is phenomenal.
I think I retweeted it one time or something, or mentioned, I never found out who the person was, but there's some guy who got my lyrics tattooed on his side. I'll have to show you that later, but...
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah,
that
is
is
crazy when I saw that.
That is almost like that almost shakes you. to the fact that someone enjoyed something so much that I created, they're willing to put something on their body that's permanent.
Exactly, like it resonated with them
That's
that much.
That's almost like that's almost too much power.
Yeah.
Too much power for me to have in these hands.
It kind of scares me. Yeah. Like, was that guy okay? Like, no, I'm sure he was okay. Like, I really appreciate it though. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. It's almost humbling in a way too.
So, you kind of talked about the emotion directly after you released the project. We're, like I said, 4, 5, 6 years after. At 5 years, summer of 2011 when you released it.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts on it looking back at it now?
I definitely see it as a stepping stone. I mean, it is 5 summers to be exact. I reference it in something that I created like the other day. I referenced that, and it feels good because it feels like I can say that I've done it. I'm not saying that I've done it well or done it to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might have their opinions on it, but I've done it regardless. So it feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I feel kind of accomplished, and I enjoy from time to time going back and listening to it because honestly, when I hear my voice and I hear my lyrics and I hear myself on the instrumentals, I reminisce as well because it reminds me of that time of my life, summer of 2011.
Oh yeah, of course. So did you write this is like some of the small details that I never knew. Did you write that entire album within that period of summer?
No, it was a process that started 2 years before. So like I want to say late 2009, because that's when I think that's around the time that I started rapping, like December of 2009 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I was just making music. Kind of like the other guys around town, I was just making songs, and then it wasn't till like spring of 2011 when I realized, man, I have enough songs to kind of put something together and call it a project, and that kind of sparked me to create the last maybe 3 or 4 tracks that led up to that release of the mixtape.
Mm-hmm. I totally remember like the first time I was writing songs. The first time. I think I had my laptop with me, but I had popped open my laptop, and I always wrote my songs on Notepad instead of Word because I was weird like that. I still have all my I found all my old song like the drafts that I wrote in Notepad.
You mean Notepad the app or Notepad like a physical notepad?
Like Notepad as like the thing on a computer. It's not Word. It's Note, which is like what every computer has
on Windows.
On Windows, it doesn't have spell check, doesn't have indenting, doesn't have formatting.
Just raw words.
It's just raw words.
Yeah.
And I would always write in that because I loved how the font looked.
Yeah.
And so I found all those old documents. But I remember I was on vacation it was spring break, and I was with my mom and my stepdad's family, and like I remember being in the hotel writing lyrics and thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this.
And it was coming easily, right?
It was coming easily at the time. I mean, I think if I went back to it now, being so out of writing both poetry and writing songs, it scares me writing, my own songs.
Yeah.
Because like when I wrote songs, I wrote for a project, I wrote for the big cohesive, like I had like that vision where I would write a lot of stuff and then have all this like mindset of this is how it's going to be for each of the songs. Mm-hmm. And then next thing you know, like I realized that I don't have the time or the capacity to follow through with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I share the same feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I might be going through a little bit of that right now. But going back on what you said about writing those lyrics in, you said Florida?
Yeah, I was in St. Louis, or in Missouri.
Missouri, sorry. I think I was thinking about 10 miles in Florida, but whatever. But going back on that, I remember when I was like, it was before I'd released my mixtape. Maybe if I had to take a rough guess, like 2010, when I was writing lyrics. I remember one time I was so inspired. I was sitting in church and I could not like focus on what was going on in church, and I was writing music instead, like writing lyrics instead. And it was like I had like this brochure from the church, something that had passed out that day, mm-hmm. and I was literally writing on that. And I'll never forget that because I thought it was pretty ironic that I was supposed to be paying attention in church and I was so focused on music and so inspired that I'd rather write lyrics.
Yeah, I totally get it. Once you have like a vision for something, you go at it full force until you realize you either get it going and then you can step back and realize you've got the ball going and don't need to slow down near as much, or you can slow down a little bit, or you reach a point like a brick wall where you have to stop because you realize you've reached writer's block, you've reached the max of your budget, you've reached some point where you have to stop physically or mentally or however creatively, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
And I think you and I both reached that point before with, our music respectively. I've had so many different convoluted ideas that I've always wanted to put into, including Buds Aplenty that you guys are also watching.
He's following through on this stuff.
That's maybe the craziest thing is that I actually have this off the ground, actually doing something.
Yeah,
so anyway, right, we kind of can relate in that aspect that we both reached those walls before.
Yeah. But a little, I don't want to say, I think it'd be too far to say a little word of advice, but I'll tell you what, it's probably a lot easier than you think it is, because I had the same exact feelings when it came to writing music and lyrics. I was like, man, I don't know if I can do this, It used to can't come so easily. I feel like it maybe could come easily. I'm a little scared to try it, but once you just kind of like get back into it, it'll all come back. Like,
especially if you were already doing it and you had like some sort of base.
Yeah.
Like you and I both, my base is much smaller. I only ever recorded
the EP?
3.
Like 4 songs? Right?
I recorded 3 songs because I had the 2 with you, or 2 with Avery, 1 with you, and then I actually went to Louisville and recorded one with another friend that never actually, I never saw the light of day. I don't think it ever.
The song didn't?
I don't think it ever left the dorm room I recorded in.
Mm-hmm. I hate that. Because do you feel like it had some potential at the
time?
No.
Okay, I look back on it, I was like, I'm glad that never reached the light of day, because that would have like really tainted my image for a long time.
You said some crazy stuff on that.
Bro, pretty. Yeah, that one was well worth staying in the dorm room. The other ones weren't near as bad.
Salem, Indiana.
I knew that.
You knew it.
I knew. But
you were waiting for it.
I still, you were talking about hearing your own voice and reminiscing. Sometimes, I learned from Avery, I can't just listen to one album. Sometimes put all your songs on shuffle, and then you'll find the song you want to listen to. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, our song that we did together, which will be in the description, our song that we did together, actually, I put it on, and I'm actually impressed by what we accomplished myself, more so because you're always more impressed with your own accomplishments. Mm-hmm. But because I always thought you had the capacity to write what you wrote. I was always impressed with the stuff that you did. But whenever I was able to like elevate myself to possibly try and reach your level, I was like, here we go.
Yeah, man, that I think I told you before that's like one of my favorite verses that I've ever recorded. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's always been easier to hear somebody ask me for help with the song and come with the ideas ready. It's really easy, just to take your idea and kind of stem from it. And I remember when you did that was like one of the more last songs that I recorded. When you did that, I was already kind of like peaked after my mixtape, so I'd really kind of developed my flow and been able to put words together like that. And I was like, yeah, this is gonna be easy. Like, I can do this. I was inspired by what you brought me, mm-hmm. and that's why I wrote one of my favorite verses personally. And yeah, I think that I also think that your verse was pretty good, and the chorus. I think that's why I said verses, but. I've listened to the song so many times that I know your verse,
wow.
I always sing the chorus, yeah. It'd probably be weird hearing me say your verse.
Yeah, that would be strange.
Yeah, that's why I joke around and say, hey, girl.
The only other way, like, you do that, and I'm always like, ooh, pardon me. But there's a part of me.
I still always think, man, that you fried me in that picture.
Where you're Robert?
Yeah, man. I was like all like in the corner, like freaking powerhouse, focused in that corner, and and you were just like all chill, like looking around. I was like, why couldn't my picture be like that, Dylan? Why'd you have to get me all focused? And, like, I really tried this hard, you know? I mean, I do, but
you just take better pictures than me. That's how it goes.
That's the truth, yeah. Okay, you admitted it. No, but
it's true. You were always like that on Instagram too, because I remember there was a period where I was starting to get into the gram. I'm like, yo, Caesar, you gotta follow me. He's like, no, I don't follow anyone. I'm like, what a statement.
Yeah, I remember that point in my life. I was like, I'm not gonna follow anyone on Twitter or Instagram. Yeah, I remember that. That was when I was like trying to be really artsy with my pictures though. If you go like back to the bottom of my Instagram, those are all the pictures I think are some of my best, but they're like all, you know, totally artsy.
It was like that freshman year where the only thing that I feel like you and I did other than discuss music was get on our Tumblrs.
Yeah.
Because like we were hella into like, you know, reblogging stuff, finding the right, you especially were into like the profile like layout especially. Yeah. I remember how like I would go over and I'd be like, yo, you gotta check out my dope
I just updated it and stuff.
I just updated it. Yeah. I was actually thinking about it the other day. I remember the URL for it, Infinite Plans.
Hey man, that sounds familiar.
But I remember I was like, yo, you gotta check out my blog, and I pull yours up and I'm like, oh, yours is like 40 times better than mine.
The crazy thing is, I remember I had a friend in high school who was really into Tumblr. I'm not gonna name drop, but I had a friend who was really into Tumblr, and I always felt like mine was nothing compared to his. So just imagine like how you would feel compared to his. Like I was always inspired by this guy's. You were inspired by mine. Like,
and then imagine him being inspired by another person.
Yeah,
it's like
he was. I mean, he had to have been, right?
Yeah, and there must have been like
this endless chain,
an endless chain of inspiration that like never reached a source because someone was always inspired by something else that other people were doing.
Like a loop. It's crazy.
That's honestly relating that back to an earlier topic we had. Speaking of tangents, we love tangents. That goes back to almost like what music could be, because you think about like a source having like an inspiration, and that inspiration having an inspiration, and that inspiration having an inspiration, because not only do you have like an endless source to grab from, but music is also timeless. So like that could span generation after generation and get all the way to the source of just music as a whole.
It's funny because I was thinking it while you were saying it. I was going to say it's not only, like, for example, me being inspired by you being inspired by someone sitting right there, but it could also be that person being inspired by someone from a different time. Like, and that in itself is a pretty crazy idea to think about. Like you said, it's endless. So.
And even, not only that, but it could span genres, where this one musician was inspired in 4 different ways from this, you know, we'll use hip-hop for example. This hip-hop artist was inspired by an R&B artist from the 80s, you know. Maybe he's big on soul samples, so he's inspired by artists like Otis Redding or Ray Charles, you know. So he has that for his like actual beats, and then he's inspired by, you know, the West Coast rap of the 90s, so he has that influence as well. And then maybe like, you know, I look at an album like Eminem's Marshall Mathers 2, and that had a lot of rock influence, so you also have to take like, maybe like that was the music that you listened to growing up, so you have that influence as well. So there's so many places for a single artist to pull from. It's almost mind-boggling to think about.
Yeah, it really is. And it reminds me of when I made my mixtape too. There were so many different sources that that I pulled from, that it kind of just made my own project. It's crazy, man. It's really crazy.
I think it was also interesting whenever I heard your album, because that was a lot of me finding my own, you know, that was before I really got into music, and you were a big help in like helping me find certain artists. And then at that point, after like we got to like being friends and stuff, I think a lot of what you did with how much you like treasured your music, that played into a lot of what I did, because I really valued album release day. So when an album would come out, I'd buy it on release day, and I thought of that day as like almost a holiday. So I thought of those were like things that I picked up from you, smaller and maybe different things, but they were almost patterns that I picked up from you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I forget where I was going with that. Dang it. What'd you say before then?
That's fine, man. I mean, we could still keep going because I just made me think of something else too. Like I remember, I still to this day pull out that My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, that the album itself, and it's like art in itself. Shout out to Kanye West. I mean, the album itself is art.
Having the different covers, oh my gosh, I remember the first time I opened that on Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I went through like 4 Christmases in a row where I only got albums, and I would get like 7 to 10 albums.
I remember a couple of those Christmases.
And I got that album, and I remember opening it at my grandma's house with, we have a lot of white light around us, but it was that orange light, that really warm light, and I opened it and saw the red with the gold writing, and I was just like, holy crap. This is oh my gosh. And then you open it when it spells like all the words, and you're just like, this is exactly why I buy albums, physical albums, because you can't get that with buying it from iTunes or streaming it on SoundCloud. You don't see the full portrayal of the album in a physical form. And sometimes you get that in vinyl where you get a record that's of a different color, and you see that and you're like, I know exactly what album that is because no other album was made in that color. So
branding, associating, I know exactly what you're saying. Like I remember, I have this album at home, and for a lot of the CDs that I bought, I kept the receipts too. So like what you were saying with the holiday, like I can look at that day and be like, wow, that was the day that I got this album.
I remember one day whenever we went out and you brought your shoebox with us wherever we went, and you opened it up and showed every album that you bought and every receipt that was still tucked in the little grooves where it held the album cover and the art. So that was like, I saw that and I was like, holy crap. And I think subconsciously I started doing something like that where I was able to memorize every place that I bought an album. So like I have 200, maybe even 300 albums I keep over in this dresser here, and I know like I bought this album here, I got this album for this gift here, I got this album from this person, I bought this one at this Goodwill, I bought this one from this Goodwill, things like that. And like you have a mental note of like what album came from what source, and you really, I think I grew to appreciate albums because of like where they came from as well.
Yeah, man.
Speaking of this album, we pull it out, and a lot of people don't realize that it has multiple covers. What is your favorite cover to the album? We'll pull them all out.
That's a good question. I realized the cover you had, and I was like, man, it's weird to see someone else's cover or someone have their own cover. I think I already know though, man. I think it's gonna be
the dancer.
Yeah, I think it's either this one or it's the dancer, definitely. And the reason why is because when
if you can see it, it's hard to see, but it's the Runaway cover.
And the reason why, and it kind of reminds me too now that you say Runaway, but the reason why is because that's when I bought the album. That's when it came portrayed first, and I just wanted to keep it the way it was. Mine isn't even like how these are creased or perforated. Mine isn't even torn up, but they're all still
still folded.
Yeah, they're still folded together. I didn't want to tamper that, I guess.
You value it?
Yeah, I do. It's one of my favorite hard copies. But yeah, that's my favorite. And I really like the Runaway video too. I mean, that video is amazing.
Runaway video, like the first time I saw it, like I think anytime I hear Dark Fantasy, like the song, can we get more time? Like anytime I hear like the beat, the do 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 do, like I feel myself like not driving my Honda. I feel myself driving the black Lambo that he's driving. I'm just like, dude, I feel so Yeezy like.
The glasses and the tux.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, man, it's nice.
I mean, where he went through that period where he was wearing that giant piece with the phoenix head, or not the phoenix head, but like the Egyptian. His chain was like massive, like
in the Power video.
The links of the chain were that big, and then he had that like Egyptian whatever
Yeah.
on his chest.
It was
and
pretty epic.
Massive. I remember watching the Power video for the first time, and I was in high school watching it on like a proxy because they had everything blocked at our school, so you couldn't surf.
Yeah, I remember those days.
And so you would find proxies so you can do certain things, and we not only was it the students that did it, the teachers did it as well. And we were on a proxy, and we watched the Power video, and I was like, where it just zooms out after being on his face, and you're just like,
so much going on. Yeah.
there's so much going on, but it's like a majestic feeling.
Yeah. There's things like, moving in small increments, and
it should be a painting. It's like has a painting vibe, but then it also has moving stuff to it. It's not the full song.
It's a good video.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you can, it is a video, but in a way, when I think of, there's a lot of things come to mind when I think of that album. But one of the things that comes to mind is All of the Lights. The prelude or the
interlude?
The interlude. Yeah, that always, every time I hear that, it reminds me of you, just because I knew you liked it so much.
I liked it. Wanted to do it as a song.
Yeah, I always remember that every time I listen to it.
It's still amazing. Like, you hear a lot of hip hop albums, and a lot of them have interludes, and a lot of them are almost like wasted tracks where they're just like filler of something to make the album, 20 songs instead of 15.
Yeah.
But
oh my god.
and that was one of the only interludes besides, at the end of you had that one, and then you had Who Will Survive in America, where Who Will Survive in America? Who will survive in America?
More like an outerlude, but yeah.
It was like like an outro, yeah.
Yeah, outro.
And so I feel like that wasn't wasted. I feel like the interlude only came about one time in the entire album, and it felt like it still had value, because it still had musical value instead of it just being like, you look at Late Registration and all the interludes were just him, the fraternity.
Yeah.
We broke, fight broke.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is alright, but
You always skip it though, right? Yeah, you never really spend time.
if I'm listening to the full album, I don't skip it.
Oh, okay. You're
But
going
if
all the way through. Yeah.
But if I get to it on a shuffle, of course I'm going to skip it. Are you kidding me? Why am I going to waste my time listening to the...
Yeah, especially when it's not in line. It's
Yeah.
just like totally random.
No context. I mean, you may be listening to a song, you skip to it, and then next thing you know, you have the third interlude of 4 from the album. And it's like...
It'd be totally random, yeah. I think the reason why I laughed so much earlier is because I totally agree with you on the interludes, and that's one thing that I'm actually working on now is some interludes. And to me, like, they almost have to be records in their own. They it can't just be that filler space, it has to be more than filler space, but a little bit less than an actual song. And I think that's where I'm aiming for on my interludes.
I was, that's a hard thing to really find a balance in, is like, what's a good interlude, and like, how can you still find value in an interlude for an album. And I was listening to Born Sinner by J. Cole, and I think he has
It's a good album.
Ain't That Some Shit, and he has Mo Money, and those I think are like super good interludes, because they're almost like a minute 50 to 2 minute songs. And a lot of people would still use that as a song, but he still uses it as an interlude. But it still adds, because it's kind of like, it's hard to even describe like what it would be, because it's an interlude in the fact that he names it an interlude, but it's not an interlude in the fact that it's still a song with a lot of value, with a lot of purpose, with a lot of meaning to it. I think Mo Money was one of my favorite songs forever off that album, because he rhymes everything with mo money, blow money, show money, potty money, side home money, dope money. Like, he rhymes everything with mo, and then the second word was always money. So it was like interesting in that aspect, because he would just change like the first words to a line, and then it always ended money. I think that was really unique, because it was rhyming before the end of the line.
Yeah, that was a really good record. Without a doubt. I have 2 things to say before. Hopefully I don't forget it. Hopefully we don't go off on another tangent just really quick.
That is the album. I did get it out.
Now that we're talking about it, like right now, I kind of feel like an interlude is really a good interlude will kind of like push the story forward. you know? I think that's really what a good interlude will do and what a good interlude is supposed to do. And with that being, or also to add to that, I from time to time I create playlists with my music, like most people do.
Yeah.
And there's one playlist I created specifically for the car, because sometimes when you're in the car, you're not really focusing to the music as much. I mean, because you're driving. I mean, I hope you're focusing on your driving. But there's a specific playlist I created for driving, and it's composed of songs that are less than 3 minutes, just to kind of get you through tracks. You know what I'm saying? So you don't
get
spend
into a
too
lull.
much. Yeah, you don't spend too much time on one song. And because really, I mean, if you're driving 15 minutes to the grocery store or something, you know, you don't want to like listen to one entire song the whole time. At least I don't. And that was one of the songs that made it on that playlist, was Mo Money.
Oh,
Yeah.
I called it.
Yeah, less than 3 minutes.
And it's hard to find value in what an interlude is, because you look at old school rap albums especially, and they were just filled with interludes that were just, you know, worthless.
Yeah.
They really didn't feel like they added much. I mean, even Kanye, you know, as much as we revere Kanye, you know, even fell trope to that. And, you know, I know a lot of people that complain about the interludes, and, you know, whenever you as an artist write, you know, an album and you have interludes in mind, sometimes it can be a hard thing as a creatively to find, like, is this really, you know, needed?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm asking.
Curious
myself
question. So you're still in the thought process of determining interludes for your future project?
now. Yeah, I was literally thinking about it last night in bed before I fell asleep. I was like, I have this track, this track, this track. I could potentially have this many interludes, which would make it this many tracks. I was kind of putting it together, like a skeleton together, and seeing how many interludes would be enough or too many. But I haven't had, honestly, like, I've been working on maybe 2 or 3 interludes that have almost become songs in themselves. So I'm kind of trying to decide, you know, where I'm going to keep them or how much I'm going to do to them. But yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Oh yeah, it did. Because, you know, if you have inspiration for something, of course it's going to develop into something bigger, better, if you think it has the potential. But sometimes I feel like the interlude, if you do it that route, can be diluted, not be near as impactful. That's just me personally. So how many interludes do you think have you worked on? If you don't mind me prodding, if you don't want to spoil anything,
No, not at all.
You can definitely shut me down, and we'll move on.
Not at all. I think
curious.
I think it's been 3, like 3 solid ones so far. But like I said, I've been in those. It's literally been within the past like 3 or 4 days that I've been working on these 3 different interludes, and I think that I've been so inspired and have done so much to them that I don't know. Like I think when I put them out, I'm not gonna go out and call them. I'm not gonna label them an interlude just because I'm scared to do that, because I feel like it's a little more than that, you know. Like I said, they seem like their own songs in themselves, but we'll see what happens. I guess it'll just be up to whoever listens to it to determine whether first they think it's an interlude or not, and then 2, whether they approve of it.
Yeah, it's hard to determine, like, if something's interlude. If someone just like throws a track out there and it's only 15-second song, of course I'm going to think it's an interlude. But the artist themselves may not think it's an interlude, because they may think it's like, oh, this is just like an extension of the track.
Exactly.
But I think it has value on its own to be its own track.
That's where I'm at.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a hard process.
Yeah.
That's why I quit music. Talking is so much easier.
Yeah.
I just put up a full episode 2 hours long, and then I'm like, oh, I don't need to separate this into interludes. You kidding me?
Yeah. I think it's interesting because the songs that I've kind of worked on and then came up with new pieces to them, those 3 different songs and 3 separate pieces have stemmed from those songs. And those are, again, like my first tape, instrumentals from other artists, which is something else I'd like to talk about too. But yeah, I mean, they just feel like they're becoming their own songs, and kind of using that vibe from that song and making my own vibe out of that. But I just briefly mentioned, I definitely with this project want to take time to acknowledge all of the help and all of the credits, give the credits where they're deserved. I'm really big about that because I've never been the type of person to claim something that is not mine or that's not me.
Yeah.
And it might not be said sometimes, like in my last project. I wrote everything that I said, at least, but there were some things that maybe if people asked me, I would tell them, but just it's not always recognizable at first, you know? So that's one thing. I don't know if it's going to be a track or some kind of, you know, whatever, like albums where they have just one page with a bunch of credits, or for each song, every credit, you know? But I'm going to do something for every producer that's been on it, for everybody that's helped me, for...
Yeah, sometimes that
some
could,
big ideas.
you know, it's a temptation to maybe get lost in like giving credit, because if you may be able to, like you had talked about earlier, you know, whenever you first released your first mixtape, it was, you know, you felt like a celebrity in a way. And sometimes you can just get so wrapped up in like the idea that you did this, I did this project, and forget like the help that surrounded it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if I went online and said, you know, I'm the mastermind of everything that I do, and not give credit to any of the guests that come on my show, then I've diluted exactly what the show is, and that's to like give my friends, you know, a platform to talk about what they like.
Yeah. This is a good platform, thanks.
Hey, oh yeah, it's good for...
Hey, and I'm literally in the video, so I mean, I don't see how you couldn't give me credit for this one.
How I know.
You selfish son of a gun. Yeah, man.
So I'm very interested. How far along are you in the
process?
In the process, because you know we haven't. You reached out to me a few weeks ago and we talked about a little bit of what you were doing. Not much, maybe one track.
Yeah, I tried to be really discreet about it. Just because I hate to be that person, because you probably know somebody or have heard of somebody. I know plenty of people who've done this where they say, I have this coming out, this, you know, this time frame and this and that, and nothing comes out. Like, I'm not trying to be that person. I hate that. I hate that person. I shouldn't say hate, but I dislike that person. But I think that I'm probably about 50 to 60% done with my next project.
And just for your to save you, these are non-committal numbers.
Yeah.
If something happens and you have to change, don't reach out to Caesar and come after him. This is for him to. This is us friends talking.
This is my mental.
This is not for you guys. This is for us as a friend interested in the creative process.
Yeah, thank you. Everybody acts like they're not here right now.
I'll cover your ass on that one.
50 to 60% done, and I'll tell you what. That 50%, 60% has come within the last like 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, like that's how long I've been working on.
You're really working hard on this.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And you know what? I'd like to tell this story because I really appreciate this from one of my friends. I went back to my hometown. I think it was like the weekend before last weekend, if not this past weekend, and one of my buddies, I was hanging out with one of my buddies, and he's roommates with another one of my buddies. And when I was walking out, that second buddy, he's like, hey, can I walk you out to your car? And I was like, yeah, sure, you know, that's fine. And he was talking to me, and he said, man, what are you doing with music right now, you know? And I was like, nothing really. I mean, it's probably less than 3 weeks in now I think about it. But I was like, nothing really, you know? And he was like, we were kind of talking briefly about music, and he started telling me how the only reason why he started making music was because of me. And it kind of made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, man. I was like, I inspired somebody, you know, that's awesome. And at the end of our conversation, when we shook hands and started leaving, he was like, you know, you should give music another shot. And I was like, I looked at him, I was like, that's the reason why you came out here and talked to me about music, right? It's like, you're trying to get me to make more music.
Oh my god.
And he looked at me and he pointed at me, he was like, and I was like, that bastard. It's like now, and I went home that day thinking I had to make music. I just felt so, you know, I was like, man, like, I just felt like I had to be making something.
Did you feel pressured to not want to do music? Because I know you and I were as you see by my shirt, I changed into this shirt today. My Kid Cudi shirt I bought when I was in college. Cudi is an artist that like everyone loves, but they only love his first two albums, and everything else they're like, oh, Cudi needs to do rap again. He's like, I'm doing my own thing, and that's like where I draw inspiration for this question, because you were posed with, you felt like you had to appease this friend of yours. Did you feel a temptation to not want to do music, or do you feel like you wanted to go back to music for you, or do you feel like you wanted to go back to music for others? I've
definitely always wanted to go back to music for me, and it's not even that my buddy, I felt pressured to make it just because he said something. It was more like this, the way I saw it was more like this kind of subconscious trick that he played on me to make me think about the impact that I had with music. And it wasn't until we were parting our ways that I realized what he had done, kind of like almost in a sense reverse psychology. Like he kind of just, and he probably didn't even he wasn't some conniving mastermind. He just did it out of heart, and it just kind of like made me feel like, man, I feel like that is what I should be doing. If I'm touching people, if I'm inspiring people to get my lyrics tattooed on them, stuff like that. I mean, and another thing is, like, for me, I think it's for me because Dylan, for me, it becomes easy. Like, music for me, rhythms for me.
Okay, music itself.
Yeah,
got it.
Music for me, rhythms for me, like, they come easy. Like, when I hear percussion, I can it only takes me a few seconds to find the beat and to find the rhythm and be able to put my words and my voice on it. And like, that's always how I've been. Like, I remember I used to be in high school, high school was around the time when I'd be walking around the house and beating on the walls, making beats. And my dad would get mad at me and he'd tell me to stop because I was pounding on the walls, freaking on the drywall.
Yeah.
But I've just always like felt rhythms. I can't dance for squat, but yeah, I can't move. I'm not coordinated to move, but I can bob my head and find a rhythm. Like, yeah, it's easy.
And I think that came from me from being a drummer. I played drums for probably 8 to 10 years. And so, like, I can keep a rhythm. I just can't dance to save my life. My friends know my dancing is probably the worst thing you'll ever see in your life.
Yeah. I believe you, too. Like,
oh, yeah,
I can see you being a bad dancer.
Dude, I'm like the lame dad who just can't dance. Who thinks he's, like, hella cool, but really...
Yeah, he just do, like, the sprinkler and stuff. And
he just does all, like, the lawnmower.
The robot, yeah. The lawnmower, yeah.
Like, exactly, everyone's like, it's all in like the waist and how you dance, and I'm all in the shoulders.
Yeah, your waist is all like steady, like it doesn't.
My feet are like concrete blocks, and I'm like moving my shoulders, and everyone's like, dude, you have a problem.
You can't move. Yeah.
Literally like paralyzed.
I always just say I'm not coordinated enough, like I can't do it.
Oh, I just don't have talent.
Yeah.
It is awful. So that was a hell of a tangent, my friend. That was a good one.
Yeah.
That really had no start point even. It just kind of like happened.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we started talking about dancing. I see here.
No, I'm talking the whole thing.
Oh yeah,
the whole thing was just chain event.
We definitely went on a row of tangents. But I see here you have college and current endeavors.
Current endeavors we kind of got into because you really got into your music. Like you talked about the thought process of the music. You talked about how far along into the music you are. I am interested. How much are you willing to tell about the project? We've got information on, what percentage you think you have done, and like I said, not a dead set number. Once again, we'll save you. Yeah. But do you have like
what the project encompasses?
You talked about story a little bit. What does that kind of involve with? Where do you draw inspiration? Not to like put in words like this is exactly what the project is, but where did you draw inspiration? Where did you find yourself going to this idea for the project?
It's interesting you ask that question, because when I was in high school and before I came out with my first mixtape, I was all about that, coming up with a large idea and having everything kind of fall under that umbrella. Mm-hmm. And with this project, I wanted to completely avoid that, because I used to go into a one-track mind and think I had to make certain records about certain things just to fit that idea.
Yeah.
With this one, I kind of just really spoke the way I felt, and I think it's shaping up now that I'm literally thinking about it. I think it's shaping up to be something, and I think if anything, it's shaping up to be relationships with people and the way that I treat people and the way that I've been treated by people. Sometimes, or probably a little more specifically with women.
Yeah.
I think I talk a lot about women on like the past 3 or 4 songs that I've.
As most rappers do.
Yeah.
Women are a very focal point of music, and particularly rap.
Sometimes in good ways, sometimes in bad ways.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think be very demeaning.
A lot of it is coming from relationships with women, but mostly relationships with people. I feel like the idea that I sent you and this kind of ideas that I told you about is almost like the kind of, the whole project itself. And with that being said, I still haven't, like I said, I was literally just thinking about it. I still haven't decided what it's going to be called. Like I have like an idea for like an album, or I think it might be a mixtape cover. Like I don't even know what it's going to be, what kind of project I'm going to label it as.
It's so raw because it's only 3 weeks in.
Yeah. And I mean, it's crazy because like when it started, I was like, yeah, whatever, another mixtape. But I feel like I'm almost putting so much time into it that I might as well call it something bigger, And it depends on, and like you said, it's still too raw to determine, but kind of just depends on how much time I end up putting into it.
Okay. So a question that came about in like you talking about this, you sent earlier about 2 hours ago, you sent a snap that of you like working, and not you at work, but you working with like the MIDI controller in front of you. You had the laptop out, you had the mic, and you had the headset or the headphones. And thinking about the word working, how do you find a balance between like your daily life and then your creative music life? Like where does that balance come in? Speaking from your own personal experience, and also speaking to the people at home that like are trying to like find a creative balance. Try and find some, like, it may not be in music, but it may be in, writing a book, or maybe in, designing a video game or something. Something, where do you find that balance?
To be honest with you, Dylan, I don't. I have to be completely honest.
You don't have a balance?
I don't.
Okay.
These past, I'm telling you, that's why that so much is coming 3 weeks, because these past 3 weeks, I haven't had a balance. Like, probably... I've been staying up way too late. I've been spending I haven't been eating like at certain times. I mean, I'm still keeping up my weight, and like I'm not like saying I'm.
Because last time
to be concerned about me.
Last time we talked, you were a pretty health nut, if I'm going to be kind about it.
I've skipped a couple meals. I'll leave it at that.
Woo.
Just because I've been so zoned in on the stuff that I'm doing, and I mean literally sitting on my computer for 4 to 5 hours at a time. Just like, because I know what I'm trying to do, I'm just trying to put that together and have it sound like something, There hasn't been a healthy enough balance recently, and I'm not ashamed to admit that, because I think if you're genuine, like if somebody were writing a book, you said, if you're genuinely passionate and you're that fueled for it, then you should just do it. You know what I'm saying? Like Shia LaBeouf, do it. No, but you should just do it, because if you're let's say, for example, you feel hungry, you have the urge to eat, you're gonna go eat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have that urge. You're not gonna ignore that urge. I mean, that's more of a a primitive urge, but at the same time, like you're not gonna like put your urge to eat off. Like I have this urge to make music, so I'm not going to interrupt that urge with other things. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it gets me into some it gets me into a pickle sometimes, because there is other stuff I should be doing, but
yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, but that's a good question though.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like sometimes we're so, like you say, we get in that zone where we just want to do that one single thing that we ignore the other things around it, whether it be our performance at work, whether it be the relationships we have with friends, our significant others, our family. Sometimes we forget about the importance of the other things, that we just like we shed all that as important and just like go all in on one certain thing. I think that's a common feeling that's felt about everyone with a creative mind, everyone with an idea that they really want to push forward.
And when you even just hearing you say that, it reminds me of. I mean, I'm not Kanye West's best friend. I can't speak for Kanye West, but I know around that time when he released or when he made 808 and Heartbreaks, he had went to like Hawaii or something, and he just got away from people. He was like in this mindset and just produced that album in a very short amount of time. And I think that's what kind of reminds me of what you're just saying. Like when you're on that, when you have those ideas and you want to put them down, like there's nothing else that can really intervene.
We're both big Kanye fans, to say the least. You and I, it's probably hard to gauge which one's a bigger Kanye fan. You probably more. Me,
it is hard to gauge. I mean,
I am. We've talked about it before. You bring up 808s and Heartbreak. That's my personal favorite Kanye album. Yours being, is it which? I'm gonna put you on the spot. Favorite Kanye album?
Oh, I was gonna say I was hoping you didn't guess and then guess wrong. It's Graduation.
Yeah, I thought that. Yeah, I remember.
You were probably thinking that one or My Beautiful Dark Twisted
Fantasy. Yeah, it was between those two. I was gonna say Graduation because I remember you describing Graduation to me. We were, I can't remember what we were out and about doing. I was scootering. I remember that because Avery and I went through that phase where we scootered everywhere in college.
Scooter a lot.
And so I remember like asking you like, what's the next Kanye album I should buy? And you described Graduation for me. I don't remember the words you said, but I went out and bought it the next day. And why do you think Graduation is your favorite Kanye album?
When I was thinking about how we're gonna do this podcast and you're gonna ask me questions, I almost had this feeling that I was gonna talk about Graduation. So I'm very glad that we're talking about it now.
I'm glad it got to that point
because I'm gonna try to keep this story as simple and sweet as possible, but I'm gonna say a lot. I still remember that year. I think it was 2007 when it came out or something.
2006 maybe.
2006.
6 or 7.
Yeah, it was like September or something, and I remember at that point, man, the only hip hop / rap that I'd listened to was 50 Cent. I was all about 50 Cent.
Yep.
And it was I spent so much time on 50 Cent that I didn't really care for anybody else.
As a lot of people did in that time. 50 was huge.
Yeah. And it was the time when he was releasing his third studio album. I think it was his third, called Curtis.
Curtis, yep.
And you probably know this story too. Kanye West, there was all this big deal, which I think was probably just to sell records,
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Looking back on it, in retrospect.
Yeah, and exactly. And Kanye West was dropping that Graduation album, and I remember seeing the stuff on TV about, Graduation and Curtis. And that day I went out. I think it was September 11th, dude. I think it was September 11th, 2017. I went out and I bought
2007 or
2007.
7 or 6. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I did say 17. You got me. But but yeah,
totally a future album.
Yeah. I bought that album, man, and I was like, I'll just whatever. I was like, I'll listen to Kanye, but I'm all about 50 Cent right now. And I listened to 50 Cent's album and listened to Graduation and decided I like Graduation more. I remember sitting in the living room of my house that year, or at that time, my parents' house, and listening to track 4, I Wonder.
Oh.
And I wonder. And I remember sitting down listening to that album and thinking, man, my ears were there was I hate to say it like this, but there was an orgasm in my ear, man. I was I had never heard anything like this. And I thought that nothing was ever going to sound like this again. And it amazed me. I was like, I need to absorb this, And that and Flashing Lights, probably one of my favorite Kanye West songs.
Yeah.
Those songs are just amazing.
The samples really do it justice. I remember reading a way to describe the album was it's a stadium album. Because you feel like you can sing along to every song in their own different ways. I think about, you bring up I Wonder. And I Wonder is amazing just because, it's slowed down for Kanye, flow. I've been waiting all this my whole life. That's so slow, especially compared to Kanye's, other, more traditional
stronger
flow.
Yeah.
Stronger. But I think it's almost an inspiring type of the sample, the way his delivery. I'm trying to think. Champion was another one that really stuck out in my mind. I remember hearing that on the walk between Ball Hall and class, you had that stretch of where the dentist school was. The trees are right there. That would have been, that was, you pass where you turn left to go to Riley Hospital, and you keep going down that street. I remember walking to class. It was winter of 2011, and that was the winter where we didn't have any snow except for Halloween. And it was just it wasn't very cold even. It was like 11 degrees out, and I was walking, and I remember hearing that song, Champion, and thinking, this is empowering, like, mentally, because did you realize you were a champion? And Kanye's like, yes, I did. And I'm like, okay, like, this is him realizing that he is the higher being that he believes he is. Mm-hmm. He really has a firm belief that he is of, higher class, higher, whatever you want to put it. Mm-hmm. Kanye is the higher one, and this is him believing it, and this is him putting it into a track. And it was just like realizing things like that, hearing things like that, maybe not recognizing what it meant at the time, but realizing that it had the power for me to think that.
Yeah. That is pretty crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's why I like listening to your opinions on songs, because, I've listened to that song plenty of times and I've had my own opinion on it, but you just put a whole new spin on it. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
You hear the opener on that song.
Good morning.
Yeah.
That's my alarm for, I always switch alarms, but that's my alarm for about half the year, I would say. That's a good song.
Yeah.
It's a perfect way to start the day, man.
It really is. And me personally, we talk about favorite Kanye albums. I mentioned it earlier. My favorite is 808s. Mm-hmm. And it's such a winter album. Like, it gets me through like half the year, because I just consider half the year in Indiana winter.
Yeah, that's safe.
It's a safe bet.
Yeah.
So I just always think of, that September, or maybe, like, I think I started listening to 808s in October of last year, and then it got me to like February or March, and you just listen to, you just put it on randomly, and you're just like, this is, like, it puts you in a certain mood, mm-hmm. but it helps you manage the mood that you're already in. Because winter, I talked about it with a friend of mine earlier this week. I hate winter. It's so gray. I deal with like anxiety in the winter, like seasonal anxiety, and so like getting into, like, it helps you manage that mood because it is someone else already in that mood.
Yeah, that's true.
And
it's an interesting perspective.
All the tracks just like fit that season. Mm-hmm. Some albums, like Channel Orange, are a summer album, tried and true. Some albums have to be played in certain places. Like, if you're going to listen to Jimmy Buffett, you're going to listen to it on the beach or at a lake, on a boat. Same with bands like Zac Brown Band. I know that's a super hard country reference, but you're going to listen to it while you're sipping a beer and while you're on the sand on a beach or at a lake. And you can find that with certain, albums. I remember whenever My Name Is My Name by Pusha T came out, and I thought, this is an album filled with anger. And I went through like a period where I was mad, and I only listened to My Name Is My Name. That was right after it came out, so it came out at a perfect time. So I think albums and music, thinking about like the way we talk about music really fits a mood and can fit a time and place. And they do that so differently for different. So it does it so different for various people.
Yeah.
One person may think, 808s is garbage because of this, this, and this. But other people might think this is brilliant because it came into my life at this time and is, wonderful for this, this, and this.
Yeah. And for some people, it could have been that, but it just wasn't the right time. Mm-hmm.
It could have fit everything that they wanted,
yeah.
But because it came at the wrong time, it just fell out.
Exactly.
My biggest fear whenever I listen to an album is if I like it on the first 3 listens. If I like it in that time, usually I don't like it. I don't come back to it after 2 months. I look at Dark Sky Paradise by Big Sean. Mm-hmm. Love that album when it first came out. Mm-hmm. My Name Is My Name. Love that album when it first came out. And then, like, you go back to it and you're just like, oh, I'm listening to that album,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't have the appeal.
Yeah.
That was, and then there's times when I'm like, I remember when I got Milo Zalato by Coldplay. That's the one that has, what's the one? Had a lot of, it had that big
Charlie Brown and
Charlie Brown, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, that not Milo Zalato. That's not the one.
Headphone. No.
What's the album before that? Milo Zalato, I enjoy. Viva.
Viva something. Viva La Vida. Or something.
Viva La Vida, yes, that's it.
Is, yeah.
When Viva La Vida came out, or whenever I got it, I was just like, "What is this?" And then I had someone say something to me, and I don't remember what he said. Shout outs to Gunner. Gunner's one of the frequent viewers. I have to always.
Shout out to you, Gunner.
You have no idea who it is.
Don't.
But I plan on seeing Gunner tomorrow, actually. So this is all. I have yet to mention the beer Sunlight by Sun King Cream Ale. Wonderful beer. It's also Gunner's favorite beer.
Really?
Mm-hmm. He lives in Lexington, Kentucky.
Gunner's a good man.
Yeah. So I had to mention that while I mentioned Gunner. But Gunner said something to me about Viva La Vida. And I went back to it with like a fresh perspective and thought, oh my gosh, just like opened my eyes to what this album is and what like it means as an album. And like the sounds of the album are so almost like emulating an orchestra.
Yeah.
And like it's enlightening, it's uplifting.
Yeah, even the single itself, I think it's called Viva La Vida.
Viva La Vida, yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's all nice, yeah. I mean, that's one I remember off the top of my head. There's other great tracks on it.
And it's not like a bombastic track in the sense that you're like filled with drums, you're filled with like we talked about the stadium album like of Graduation, and Graduation was filled with like heavy beats, heavy drum, Kanye's always big on his drums. But I think of Viva La Vida, like the song, and it just has like him just playing one drum every so often, and it's just like the violins and the horns that carry the song. It's bombastic in different ways than like drums being like the focal, like the driving force of the beat.
I agree with you. Violins are nice.
It's an awesome.
I was just messing around with one on that program earlier.
Which program do you use for your recording?
Right now I'm using GarageBand. Yeah.
Flashbacks. I used to use GarageBand back when in 8th grade we made an entire album with GarageBand.
Yeah.
Oh, it was wonderful.
I wish I could say I was using something a little more sophisticated. I mean, nothing against GarageBand or Apple, but I definitely. The only thing is, like, I just hate wasting time on trying to put my ideas down. I just want to get them down. I bet any artist could agree. That's one of the hardest parts of making music is just getting the idea from your head to the actual program to make sound
within their limitations.
Yeah,
I totally agree, because I think another process that also really bogs me down is the learning process, the learning curve of certain programs.
Yeah,
because you'll get to a certain point where you're like, I know this is the best program, my budget, and within my limitations I can get, and you get that program and it has a steep learning curve and you're not able to get exactly what you want out of it because you don't know the full potential. And so that can be frustrating in its own as well,
even discouraging.
To where you want to go back to something simpler even though you know you're limited by it.
That's exactly what happened to me. There was a program that a program that was introduced to me called Ableton Live. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's a little more. Well, it's really more complicated compared to GarageBand, and that's what I did. I just resorted back to GarageBand because it was simpler and I could do something quicker.
You were within like a creative mindset where you didn't have time for patience.
I didn't want to waste that time trying to figure out how to use the program exactly. Exactly.
Excuse me, the beer's wonderful. The beer is wonderful.
Hey man, you're babysitting that beer. I'm gonna pay you. I'll pay you for babysitting.
I love it. I haven't had a cream ale in quite a while, and
it's a lot better on draft. I'm not gonna lie.
I do agree.
Yeah.
I find that a lot of times there are very few beers I enjoy in can. I enjoy them much better on draft.
I guess that is true. Yeah.
We had our first episode. We had Horsepower by Toyard, and amazing beer, but only good on draft.
Yeah.
because I get my growlers filled, as some of you can see in the back, and growlers they're draft beer, and they screw the cap on and you take it home, and it's good for a little less than a week.
Okay.
But that is the best beer in my mind.
Give myself a growler.
I have 4.
Yeah.
They are wonderful, and you've never been on the growler game?
No, I've heard that word so many times, but I never knew.
This is the growler game, and what you can do is they have fill days for them. So, for example, Sun King's fill day is Friday, and you go to Sun King, take your growler, and it's $6 to fill that up.
That sounds like a very good deal.
Whereas getting the same amount of beer in cans is $12.
Yeah.
So
that sounds like a bad habit, though. I don't know if you want to drink that much beer. It's amazing,
as long as you can
$6.
For $6, it's, and you don't, and you're still supporting local, which, and the local stuff is amazing, especially around here.
That's one of the reasons why I love Sun King, just because it's here. That simple.
My girlfriend last Sunday took me on a indie brew bus. She bought us tickets to it, and it was a bus that took you to 4 different breweries around the city, and all 4 were ones that I had never been to. I'd never tried any of their stuff. And so you get there, you have samples, and they're all so different from each other. Like, there was one place where I had a coffee beer, which was, I was a couple beers in, so I enjoyed it nonetheless.
Yeah.
But there was another one. We went to Deviate, which is on the far north side, on the top part of the 465 circle. And there was one beer that you drank, and it had like the most mellow like initial taste, because how some beers especially, you have it like an initial taste, and then you have your aftertaste, which is completely different from that initial taste. It had just a mild initial taste, and then you swallow, and the aftertaste hit, and was like a blast of mango. And you were just like, holy crap, this is like not an overload, but that close to an overload to where it's still wonderful.
Yeah.
And being able to try all the different stuff is amazing, especially because it's all within 20 minutes of driving.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that keep me in Indy is the selection of beer.
Yeah, the alcohol.
I could never go home and try and drink the domestics at my
I wouldn't ask you to.
No.
Not in Salem.
When
I was joking.
when I walk into Dad's and he goes, "Hey, you want a beer? What do you got?" Coors Light. Same old stuff that Dad's been drinking for 20, 30 years.
Yeah, like 200 years. Coors Light.
And he tried and true. He's been a Coors Light man since, I don't know how long, whenever Dad started drinking.
I'm not gonna lie though, that's stuff like that is a go-to. I mean, like if I'm somewhere where they don't have, like Sun King for example, just give me a Bud Light, whatever, or a Budweiser or something. It doesn't matter, because
it becomes more of a social thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That you default into, instead of enjoying the beer, you default to enjoying the people that you're around with a beer in hand.
Yeah, being present. Good point.
Yeah. In the last year, I've really got into like going to breweries. Since I got the growlers. The growlers are a great investment, because then you can fill it, and then you can use that same growler to go get beer somewhere else. Wash it out yourself and then go take it somewhere. Instead of buying cans, well, I can't go get that can refilled.
Yeah.
I'll have to trash it.
It's less waste too.
As beautiful as the can.
You don't have to waste some aluminum.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Growlers are, almost art in their own, just because they're cool.
Yeah, it's looking pretty artsy over there.
Yeah. I love my set back there. So, we touched on it a little bit, and I am way more prepared than you when it comes to our lists. I do want to discuss our favorite albums, especially from 2010 on, because that was about the time we met, and that was almost a different era of hip-hop in a way. So we'll go back and forth, and we'll talk about our top five hip-hop albums from 2010 on.
Top 5.
Yep. And if you need, I can go get you a pen and you can start writing. I got plenty of pens floating around my place around here. Or if you just want to go straight off the dome, we can.
I guess you could go first.
I can definitely go
list
first.
a couple.
I do have some honorable mentions, but not by album, by artist. I have A$AP Rocky. I remember when A$AP Rocky's first mixtape came out, and you and I were just like, that you only listened to A$AP Rocky for like maybe 5 months.
Yeah, that mixtape was pretty different to me.
No, it was so, like, it was a blend of Houston and a blend of New York. Flow that is now more popularized, but I think like when it first came out, it was so different. It was like a slowed down, kind of drug induced. You know, we had some drug induced rap, but not near as much. But that was like,
which became more popular after too. Yeah,
that was like one of the first modern examples of changing the genre, but not because of like location influence and because of drug influence. Chance the Rapper. I think Avery and I discussed it. Chance is a very I think he's a very accessible artist for non-hip hop listeners because he's very positive. He's not like we talked about Pusha, and Pusha's very negative in like the ideas of like anger and the ideas of that,
talking about haters and
and rage and like the drug game. Chance really isn't about that. Chance is kind of like a relatable, like
more bright
21-year-old, early 20s kid who like fresh out of college, and like people of all ages can relate to that because he's just like a kid out of school. Nowadays he's a parent, and like adults can relate to that because he talks about his daughter, and like that's relatable to a lot of people.
Well, you're just talking about artists.
I'm just talking about individual artists, not based on like their individual albums, but artists post 2010 that deserve recognition.
Oh, okay.
Tyler, the Creator. We have to recognize that because you brought that to the table for me and Avery, who's an even bigger Tyler fan than us, or than probably us nowadays. I'm not sure if you're still a big Tyler fan. We went through that.
Is that a question?
That's a yes or no question. Okay. If you're still a Tyler fan.
No, not at all.
Exactly. Not at all. And I enjoyed the time that I listened to him, especially whenever I went and saw him in concert twice, and both times were cool in their own different ways. But I think that was just like that fresh out of college rebellious state.
Exactly.
That every kid goes through.
Yeah, and it just happened at the right time for us.
He really is. You have to mention him because of what he did for like a generation. He was easily accessible for 22 and younger. I felt like there were kids in high school that like thought of him as the best artist of all time, and they're just like, I don't think you understand the gratitude, or not the gratitude, but the gravity of what you're saying. But I can respect that because that's what he that's what you attach to.
I think you're right for that, and I think you're very courageous for bringing that up because sometimes I'm ashamed to admit that I used to listen to him and be a fan.
I have his first 3 albums.
I think you're right though. I think he does deserve the credit because he did do something a little different, kind of like that same sense that you were saying
about A$AP Rocky.
Yeah, he kind of. I wouldn't say it changed the game, but it kind of like gave it a little shake, kind of put a little twist on it.
Yeah.
For a hot second,
And he was also in the same vein as Cudi because his first 2 albums were so dark. They were so like heavily demon focused, heavily like
Antichrist kind of
Antichrist,
stuff,
heavily sexual assault focused. I mean, you talk about one of his lyrics on Orange Juice, a beat that you also used for your mixtape. That was Lemonade, yeah.
Yeah, original Lemonade.
His one of his lines is he talks about having I stopped myself from saying it.
I realized that you're gonna explicit yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna really explicit myself, but he talks about having Taylor Swift in his basement. And I'm like, what? You can't say that.
Don't say that.
But at the time he could because that was just his thing. Yeah. But nowadays, I think similar to Cudi, he changed, but his fans also were okay with it. Another one that I have to mention is The Throne as in Kanye and Jay-Z together for that single album. I remember when you and I both got that album. I was with my mom when I bought that
2011?
album. 2011. That would have been right after we met in college. And that album, I remember that album's in my closet. I should have got that out, where the four pieces fold out and you have his face. And you have like the American flag with the tribal stuff. And the deluxe album has the print where you can, like, it actually sticks out instead of it being behind the plastic of a normal container. Oh, that you just hold that and you're just like, I've got a piece of gold.
Yeah,
on
it
me.
is a pretty nice. Yeah, it is a pretty nice project. And the throne, I think it's funny you say that because it's just that one project. But
if they ever do a repeat album, it will be quite amazing. And I had him on my list initially, but I had to remove him because a better album was on the list. My number 6 album would be Because of the Internet by Childish Gambino. I remember Avery and I were the ones who got you into Gambino.
I was thinking about that the other day.
Gambino is a phenomenal artist. I wish he would put out something. On Reddit, the Childish Gambino sub is always like, when's he going to put out an album? It's like the Frank Ocean sub.
Yeah.
Everyone's like...
I believe it.
But apparently he's supposed to put out something pretty soon.
I think I heard something was supposed to be out, or he's created something with Chance the Rapper. I don't know if you heard that. But
that has been in the works for a while too. But he's also apparently got something... His own project that's releasing soon. He's on tour. He released a tour earlier this week and it sold out in 2 minutes. So they ended up doing like more shows because it sold out so quick. So I think he's a very another relatable artist. Relatable in different aspects because he talks about things like struggles with his parents, talks about weaving a story, which is always, a story that's not necessarily about him, a story that's about certain other characters. And that's like reading a book. That's like whenever you read a book, you can relate to it because it's not about an individual person's experiences other than someone that's fictional. See what I'm saying? So I think that's why I think Because the Internet works, because it was so... You talked about being under the umbrella of like a project and like the themes and stuff. That was one that was super under the umbrella because it was about this character doing this and him doing this and this and this and having certain characters and stuff, and it played out really well.
it did.
That is one I had to mention at number 6. Yours don't have to be in necessarily any order because I'm mentioning them in order. Number 5 for me is Born Sinner. We talked about it earlier. Have it right here. It is an awesome album. I have the deluxe edition. I thought it was better than Force So Drive, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. It has much better production, in my opinion. You think of like Land of Snakes.
Yeah. I still remember the intro of the Illuminati, man.
Oh, that's an awesome song. You think about Trouble. Set it off on my left, set it off on my right.
That's a good song.
Yeah.
I like Chaining Day a lot.
Chaining Day is amazing. And you think Forbidden Fruit was,
Kendrick,
I wish Kendrick actually did a verse on that song. I'll still always think about that. We talked about the samples, or not the samples, the interludes. Mm-hmm. Both the interludes are amazing.
Yeah. It is a good album.
You even think about thinking about interludes, he also has a skit on there where he has the preacher, I've been thinking,
yeah,
and where he's like screaming and stuff and talking about like paying for the sermon and stuff. He had both are 2 big hit singles with Power Trip with Miguel, and then he had
that was a huge
Crooked Smile with TLC.
Yeah, both
of them are really like
not as big, but
not catchy, as big, but they were both catchy in like that you could play them on the radio. Mm-hmm. Very similar to, I'm trying to think. Well, he didn't have any big singles off of like
Force So
Drive. He had really good songs on there, but not like single.
That's true.
Whereas you look at his first album, he had
Lights Please,
and
that one and the one with Missy Elliott and
Nobody's
Perfect.
Nobody's Perfect. Yeah, that was a big radio hit.
I can't remember the song that you're singing. I think it's like track 3 or something.
It is track 3, yeah. So I think Born Sinner you have to recognize as a top 5 hip hop album from then. Mm-hmm. So because of how big he is too. I think this was like where he was big in the mixtape game. First release was kind of iffy. I remember getting that on album release day. And I remember getting this on album release day and thinking, like, this is so much better than the first.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's, like, a couple of main artists that I would like to consider, like, my kind of top-ish. Mm-hmm. And for me, it'd probably have to be someone like Kanye, someone like Drake, someone like J. Cole, someone like almost Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar is a little iffy for me. I know that's kind of weird, probably for you to hear, but... Kendrick Lamar is almost a little...
I can respect it because I know, just from personal experience, we both of us go through so much difference in genres, like changing what we listen to. Mm-hmm. I remember when in 2000, it would have been last year, I asked you what the best album was of last year, and you said Adele's album. I was like, are you kidding me?
You're expecting me to say that.
I expected you to say...
album, yeah.
Yeah, and then you were like, I gotta say Adele, and I was like, what?
Yeah, I was like, this is a solid album, man. Yeah, so when I think of that's how I think of some of my favorite albums of this past 6 years, I guess. And when I think of those artists and albums that have came from those artists in that time, I would have to say an album like My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is very, very high on the list.
Once again, get it out for the fans.
Yeah, that
beautiful album.
It was just that, a twisted fantasy, man. It was a pretty good project.
What were some of what songs to you stood out? Like, we mentioned a few of them earlier. What were some of the ones that like really, really stood out to you? Like, you talked about I Wonder off Graduation. You talked about Flashing Lights. What were some of the ones that really stood out on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy? Definitely
Devil in a Red Dress.
Oh.
Is that what it's called?
Yes, it is.
I always forget what it's called because
You did it.
Yeah, I redid this. I used the instrumental and I call it Devil in Some New Heels. So I forget what it's called because I have my own version.
Love the Rick Ross verse on there.
Yeah, and I love the part in between their verses too.
Oh, with the distorted guitar solo. Ooh.
That song, and I remember at that time, and which kind of helped play that part with what my topic of conversation when I used that instrumental of the one we were just talking about was Blame Game with John Legend. Mm-hmm. I think that was a really good song. It had a lot of emotion in it.
It was also a song that could have also had a technical interlude on it because the last half of the song was just Chris Rock just talking about like
Yeezy Taught Me.
Yeezy Taught Me. And so like that could have been an interlude where it was just Yeezy Taught Me.
So many songs. All of the Lights is so powerful. I still remember watching. I've always said I love music videos. I always love watching music videos. I always say that I wish my life was a music video. Mm-hmm. I've probably tweeted it like three or four times. But I just still remember watching that video. Kanye wearing his Retro 3 Jordans, like stomping on a car. Like it's epic. And then of course the interlude, the track right before it. Mm-hmm. Songs like Power, like even in the Runaway video, him hitting the drum pad.
That remix is amazing.
Yeah,
that's. I think that may be one of my probably my favorite scene from that music video is him like doing that and like having the Phoenix dance with him.
It was pretty epic.
Yeah.
There was one more. Oh, obviously Runaway. I mean, that song I feel like is the album in a nutshell, in my opinion. Other than that album, though, I would have to say Take Care is definitely up there.
I did not get it out, but it did make my list. That was the one that overtook because of the internet.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. I think I had to do it because it was the first and only album I ever pre-ordered. That and Camp by Childish Gambino.
Yeah, you were pretty big on Camp.
Not so much anymore. It's one of those albums that you had it fell into the loved it initially, didn't go back to it. Whereas like
that unfortunate category.
The albums that I hate talking about because it brings up bad memories of me, the pre-release and then it comes out and it was the pre-release, then the initial release and then the post-release and you're just like, oh, the fall off.
Yeah, it's over, it's done. Yeah.
Take Care had so many great songs. It had Drake at probably his best balance of singing and rapping, because you had songs like Shot For Me, which had great singing parts at the beginning, a slowed down flow, and I think that's where Drake excels. You had Headlines?
Yeah.
Headlines,
Song.
which is a great single for him, and probably the biggest single off that album.
Yeah. I think the other single was like Make Me Proud.
Make Me Proud with Nicki.
That one was amazing too.
Really good.
I remember listening to that one and telling Logan, my roommate at the time, like I was like, dude, you gotta listen to this track. It's the hottest thing out right now. Like this song is sick.
My favorite song personally off of it was Cameras.
Yeah.
I know you and I both have a strong appreciation for Cameras.
We both appreciate Cameras. Yeah.
I'm actually
probably one of my favorite Drake songs.
I'm actually gonna pull up the track list because that would make me appreciate it a little bit more.
It has like 17 songs, so
it's a long album and it doesn't have a lot of interludes.
Yeah.
I think the only interlude, which interesting enough is not on my album, but is the Buried Alive interlude.
Ooh,
with
good one.
Kendrick.
Yeah.
See, and I barely get to it because it's at the end of Marvin's Room, which is in its own a long song. That was the big single.
Yeah.
In my
It was. Yeah, I think that was like one of the first singles too, like the very first single.
I have an appreciation for Practice too. I love that song. Look What You've Done was amazing when it first came out, and you're just like, this is awesome.
The production on that song is beyond amazing.
The storytelling in that song where it kind of like focuses on family members of him, genius idea.
Yeah.
Because like it shifts and you really don't know
exactly
who it's focusing on unless you like go to like Rap Genius, which is another amazing feature.
Or unless you know the artist. Yeah, but Rap Genius is pretty cool. But yeah, it talks about his uncle and talks about his mom, and you like the first time through you don't really know what's going on, but once you kind of grasp what's happening, it's like it is genius.
Thinking about it, it really has he's featured on it 2 or 3 times, but it has a Weeknd vibe where you have Crew Love, which the Weeknd singing on that is absolutely amazing. And then he does the sample on The Ride, and I'm not a huge fan of The Ride as a song, but like that sample, him singing that, he hits some notes that are not like possible for most men.
Yeah. The Ride's probably my least favorite, actually.
Another song that was Hell Yeah Effing Right. I'm gonna
HYFR.
Yep, HYFR.
It's got a good video too.
Good video. One of my Wayne is not one of my. He's a hit or miss artist for me, and I think that's a song that really
he hit it.
I think he really did. He did it well. Hold my breath till my face turned purple.
Yeah. Keep you better. My circle. Yeah, man, I love that song.
Ain't no curfew.
I really enjoy rapping that song because it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Like just to hold your breath.
I remember the first when we were recording our song together. We listened to that, even though that was almost 6 months after the album came out, and we sang Cameras together. That's like a firm memory I have of you and me driving around singing Cameras, and we were singing the different parts of like the post-verse stuff. After the verse and chorus hit the
Yeah.
And you were singing one part and I was singing the other.
Yeah, it just worked out. Yeah.
And it worked out really well. And then we were talking about if you could sing HYFR in one breath, and that was like the hardest thing. And now I can't even do like 4 lines without getting out of breath because I'm out of shape.
I'm very positive that that's just good editing for that verse. I don't think that's actually one take.
I don't think Drake has that talent.
Because it's a lot, man. It's a lot. But anyway, I still remember the last thing I say about this album. I still remember that was one of the first albums I had ever I was anticipating it so much that when I purchased it and brought it home, the first thing I did was I went straight to my bed, laid down, put some headphones on, and listened to it. I closed my eyes and listened to it. Like I just wanted all of my attention on that music, or on the music at the time. And that's ever since then. I mean, I've done that with a handful of albums now, but that was one of the first albums I did that with. Just like devoted my time to that moment.
we're jumping ship. I'm jumping ship a little bit from Take Care, but I have yet to discuss it with you. What do you think of Views?
Views?
Views, yes.
You
being a mega Drake fan, if I'm gonna put it lightly.
I think it's good. I think a lot of people hated on it. I think a lot of people didn't give it credit, and I think a lot of the people who are speaking on it at this time in Drake's career aren't the Drake fans that should be speaking on it, because as you probably know very well or have seen, artists evolve, in which with each evolution they get different fans.
Yeah.
Sometimes keep the old ones, but sometimes just lose them. And I think the people who are considered Drake's fans now aren't the type of people who would appreciate something like Views. So I think it's just bad timing for him in his career and in his album and his fans. But
sold well, I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, that too. But I don't know if you know, but the numbers that they had counted the singles like Hotline Bling, and that's why it actually came out as that many numbers.
Because they counted Hotline Bling?
Yeah.
Wow.
If you consider, I remember reading this in an article, if you consider the plays of one single so many times, and that's why he put Hotline Bling on that album.
So we could get...
As soon as that album came out, it had already technically sold that many copies.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a smart move on Drake and his camp, but really, numbers, you can't really tell numbers anymore anyway.
It's such an odd world that now, like, The Life of Pablo is considered, one of the best, charting albums of all time, and it's never sold a single copy.
Yeah.
That's another album I did want to get your opinion on, because that was one I actually enjoyed. Did you enjoy Pablo?
Yeah, man, I enjoyed it a lot. It was probably, aside from, I was just talking about anticipating Take Care a lot, it was probably one of the most anticipated albums ever.
Agreed.
For me as a fan.
Yep.
When it came out, I still remember it was February 11th when he had that show in Madison Square Garden, and I registered for a Tidal account just to watch that. And I sat there. It was supposed to start like at 6 p.m. and I sat there from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. just looking at the inside of the stadium because Kanye was behind on time. He was late or whatever, and it hadn't started. And I remember watching him come out, and it was a pretty big deal to me, if you can't tell. Him coming out with his family and the Kardashians and stuff, and they're all looking all like some white fur coats and all glamour. Have you seen that?
I have not.
You gotta watch it, dude. They're all coming out looking all glamorous and stuff, whatever. And it's just it looked like a pretty big deal, man. There was just like 2 Chainz and Big Sean and Pusha T, all
Cody was there too.
Yeah, and they were just all on it wasn't even a stage. They were just all he did was press play and kind of like dance like the whole time.
Yeah.
With the show itself,
I have some of the like the remixes and stuff. It was like I don't know if it was just like a zip file that released of all the leaks that had like the original cuts of FML, and it has The Weeknd doing his hooks, and it also has Young Thug doing a hook, and then it has the remix of All Day with Kendrick. So it has some of like the old, like the original cuts of certain songs. It has the cover that I chose for it was an alternate cover where it had Kanye playing it was him at his laptop, and it has Pusha and it has Cudi in the background. And I was just like, yo, that looks cool. Like an amazing time.
Yeah, man, I really like that, and I really anticipate. And he kept the whole entire world, or at least Kanye fans, waiting, man, because he premiered that Madison Square February 11th, and the album didn't come out till like February 14th or something, like February 13th. Those whole 48 hours, I was like literally clawing my eyes out. I was like, where is this album? I need to hear it. I was downloading. I was downloading some maybe not so legal stuff at that time, trying to listen to that album, man, because I was like, I need to hear this.
It's like, I'm still not a big fan that he never put out a physical release, as you can tell by me pulling out albums out of thin air.
It's a shame.
That was probably the biggest shame of the album release, is that I can't hold it in my hands ever. Yeah. If I ever want to hold it, I have to go over there and hold my laptop or hold up my phone playing it on Tidal or Spotify.
Yeah, man, it's a shame, especially after something like My Beautiful Dark Twisted, like this, something that we have right here.
But it's almost inevitable looking at what he did with Yeezus, which was just a clear cover with a piece of red tape on it.
Eventually you get into that point, huh?
It would get to that point where there's just there's no case.
Yeah. And it's a shame because I had this idea of, and it was even it was even before I knew that he wasn't going to come out with a hard copy. I was like, I'm going to buy this hard copy and I'm going to put it with the rest of my hard copies and literally frame the hard copies. I want to frame them. And, Kanye's albums, that's how big of a fan I am. And, it never came out, man. I would have to print some picture of it and have a picture in there. It just wouldn't be.
And take the album. You can't even buy the album.
Yeah,
so it'd just be the case or the art without an actual copy of the CD or anything.
Or else I'm gonna also be reckless and print my own copy some freaking no, it's just, it sucks that we can't do that or I can't do that,
that's probably the biggest shame in the album release. Some of the songs were kind of weird. Some of it it was an odd album to say the least. I'm not saying it was a bad album, it was a good album, but it had some odd choices of lyrics, as we saw with part 1.
Yeah.
Odd choice.
Yeah.
The
bleaching holes.
Bleaching holes with models. Yeah, that was odd.
Mm-hmm. It was a little
the Taylor Swift stuff.
Yeah, that one too. I was all right.
And that one, Kanye's gonna say what he thinks.
Yeah.
So, that was probably the biggest shame in the release, though.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
This thing's still recording?
Yeah. It goes on. It goes on forever.
It goes on forever.
I mentioned Take Care. I mentioned Born Sinner. I mentioned. I don't have my copy because Avery took it to Florida.
Copy of what?
To Pimp a Butterfly.
Oh, okay.
To Pimp a It's hard to pick a Kendrick album.
TPAB.
Yeah. TPAB. It's hard to pick a Kendrick album because Section 80 was amazing in its own right. What's it called? His debut album or his second album, Good Kid, Mad City, is awesome in its own right.
Sorry to interrupt. Was Overly Dedicated a mixtape, or was that an album?
It was an album. I got it off Dat Piff. So, but you can still buy it from some places. Because it's so,
especially coming from Dre's camp. I remember that's why stuff like Section 80 was something you had to buy because really it's like an album. You can't really call it a mixtape,
And it's not a mixtape. You had to buy it, but it did very few physical releases. I remember you could buy the physical release, but it was in just this type of material, just sleeve, and it was autographed. It was only $15 for an autographed copy. And that they did that for their Top Dog did that for their 4 initial releases. Their 4 they did that one. They did Schoolboy Q's album that he did. They did it with Absol's Book of Soul. And they did it with no, they did not do it with J Rock. J Rock didn't have one of those releases because he was the first artist to have a release. But To Pimp a Butterfly, I have to mention, compared to the other 3, because I think it will have more lasting appeal. I think it will be an album that lasts a lot longer because of the sounds being so different. We talked about A$AP Rocky. We talked about Tyler. This was an album that was a fully jazz. It was jazz recognized. It was a jazz rap album, more or less. It was
a West Coast feel with it too.
Super West Coast feel. It had
obviously
it had very strong themes. Him talking about
concepts.
The concepts of not black excellence that was talked about on the throne, but black equality, black the black inequality of what the world today is. And I think those themes were portrayed in a way that were easily accessible and for everyone to listen to in the public. It's a harder album to get into, probably the hardest of the 5 albums I listed to get into. But I think you have to recognize of what it was as a musically genius album.
And I mean, to be honest with you, I wish that I saw as much in it or appreciated it as much as you. Because I do, don't get me wrong, I do appreciate it, but I can totally tell that you have this deeper meaning of it. And I think that's why that one day when we were talking about albums, you said that album and I said Adele's album.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think it's just a smart album. Kendrick, of the artists I've listed today, is probably the smartest of the artists. Not because of like, I think he recognizes what he says impacts the culture. I think he recognizes the beats that he chooses and like the instrumentals that go with his songs also like really accompany what he says. So I think like being aware of those things makes him a little bit of a higher intellect.
Higher caliber
artist. He is a higher caliber artist. Whenever he put out Good Kid, Mad City, friend at work described it as a rap opera, because it's his story. But it's not like the foreign concepts of 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Trying, where he's talking about you find me in the club and like he's not talking about the club. He's talking about getting fired from his bank job because he sets up a robbery with his friends, and he talks about with his homies. Talks about love lives when he talks in Poetic Justice. Talks about the struggles of the streets, which a lot of people can relate to. Not me personally, because I don't reside in the streets. I don't go to the streets, and I wasn't raised in the streets. But each of those songs resonated with a different person, and they also had a different emotional attachment. Because you think of Money Trees. Money Trees is like a laid back song. It's such a laid back flow. You think about Poetic Justice, and Poetic Justice is like that seduction, because you have Janet Jackson, on the sample. You have, Mad City, which is so like anger focused. Yeah. Yeah, like Schoolboy Q saying that in the background, and that really fueled the emotion. So I think he's an artist that really has that, the smarts of how to make an album emotional and
like diversified.
Diverse, yeah.
I agree, man. Still love J-Rock's verse on that Money Trees. I think he flows very well on that. I love listening to his rhythm.
I wish J-Rock was a little bit more universally liked. I think of the four major top dog artists, you can look at Schoolboy Q, Kendrick, Absol, and J-Rock. I think he's probably the lesser of the four, unfortunately. Even though I talked about they were like different heads of a dragon, and they each had different voices. Kendrick was like the higher intellect, Absol was like the conspiracy theorist. J-Rock was the grizzled. He's like the dad. He's been through more than all of them combined, and can speak to that. And Schoolboy was kind of like that free form, have some fun, but yet be still aware of what was going on. He's kind of like that drug induced aware guy. Yeah. But didn't really speak to that. He was aware of what was going on, but not really speaking about it. He was just like going with what the flow was. Yeah. That was the way I described him, and it's a shame that the dad of the four kind of fell to the masses of sales.
That's an interesting way of describing Schoolboy Q. I never thought about it like that, but I think it totally fits.
Yeah, I think so too. Because I saw him in concert, and he was, if I remember correctly, he was smoking on stage, and he just didn't care. Yeah, he just did his thing. I talked about a few. You talked about Take Care. You mentioned My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. What do you think were some other ones that really defined the last 6 years?
For me, it would probably have to be I'm not gonna lie, I think like I said, when I think about those artists and the projects that those artists have released, I want to say one from J. Cole, and I think the one from J. Cole would probably have to be Born Sinner as well. For me, Forest Hill Drive is really not that far behind because I really like that album a lot too. But I guess for the sake, because since we already talked about Born Sinner, we could talk a little bit about Forest Hills. But yeah, I think I agree with you too. That first, I'm not even sure when his first one came out. Maybe like 2011.
2011, because we were still in the dorms.
Story. Yeah, I didn't. That one. I mean, that was a good album. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I think it was the lesser of
the three.
Yeah, the three.
If not more so, it was lesser than his last two mixtapes. His mixtapes before Sideline Story were phenomenal. You look at Friday Night Lights, that was the first mixtape that you introduced me to. And I was like, this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then you go back and the warm-up is really good too.
Yeah. I love the warm-up.
The warm-up is really good.
I think you're right. Those mixtapes probably are better than that first album. And I mean, nothing against J. Cole. I mean, it was a good first album, like I said, but still, like
he recognizes. I think a lot of people recognize that it was just him trying to appeal to masses right off the bat. Didn't live up to the hype, because I think the warm-up and Friday Night Lights were like maybe some of his best work of all time. They had some very socially aware, very self-conscious, very great. They had great production. The tracks on it were so varied. Had some features. I mean, he had Drake on there back when Drake was still 2010 Drake. That would have been Thank Me Later. I mean that.
Yeah.
And what's his other one? The big one that he had that had Best I Ever Had.
Oh yeah, the single.
Yeah, that they had that song, and it had So Far Gone. So Far Gone is my favorite. Is actually my favorite Drake. Well, Take Care and then So Far Gone. But those were great J. Cole projects. So I figured that there would be a lot of overlap with what we agreed on for albums.
Yeah. Just
because it's a limited time frame, and you recognize what's great and what's not. My number 2 is as my shirt.
Man on the Moon 2?
Man on the Moon 2. Because that does fit in. Otherwise, it'd be Man on the Moon 1. I think Man on the Moon 1 is better, but it's 2009.
Yeah, I was going to say, I
2009.
I think it's just a little bit before.
Man on the Moon 2 is in 2010.
Barely fits it.
Barely fits. I had to get it in there. Otherwise, it would have been because of the internet. Once again, the default. But Man on the Moon 2, as I have back here, is a very, very dark album. It's hard to see from back there, but whatever.
It's literally dark too. Yeah,
it's literally dark there. I won't open it because, as you can see, that is not safe for camera. But it was just dark. He was.
I remember liking that picture.
Yeah, I know, that's a good picture. Go see it for yourself. Not safe for work. Don't do it at work.
You gotta buy the hard copy.
But if you're watching Buds of Plenty at work, you've got a problem in the start. But yeah, it's a great album.
Buds of Plenty. Yeah, it is a good album. Go ahead.
It wasn't one that ranged in a lot of emotions, though. It was a very dark, dealing with what he was dealing with. He was dealing with his cocaine addiction at the time, and that was him talking about still being, the rager, still being the lonely smoker. He talked about that in his first album, but this was like where he really fleshed it out, where the emotions were like at an all-time high.
A tipping point, yeah.
To the point where where his album art almost felt like he was on suicidal note.
Yeah, I mean, even that in itself.
There's pictures in the booklet where he's like bleeding out. And do you remember the music video for Mr. Rager where he's like going up the stairs and he's fighting all these like newbies, and then Kanye's in it? Oh my gosh, that was an awesome video. And you think about there was a song called These Worries, which is awesome. And it's an awesome song because like it's kind of relatable in the aspect like you hear like people worrying about things, but like it's just people worrying. They don't really like show the care that you I'm trying to think of the line he says, but in fact they never gave up an F about me. And so like it's like people caring, or like they have like these worries for you, but it's the inner the inner battles where you're like blocking out what people think, and you think of yourself in this own like aspect. Like you only think of like the darkness in your life and the things that are going wrong and the things that you're dealing with, and you don't care if other people worry about you. You're fighting. They may say it, but it just like bounces off. You got a lot of those vibes. Even like Erase Me, which was a brighter song. I mean, it's about a girl wanting to erase her ex or erase like the current guy that she's dating from her memory. It's like, that's dark. That is not that should not be single worthy. Usually it's the other way around, where she's been erased and you're like there for the rebound to like get her back on her feet. Mm-hmm. And it was an album that turned the tables on what like emotion could do, very similar to what 808s did. It was, and I think his first album did the same thing. It was a very here are my emotions, here's what I dealt with, here's what is on my plate, take it and see how you relate.
Yeah, kind of like no really concern for what you might think about it, just take it how you want it. Mm-hmm. I specifically remember listening to songs like Marijuana and Maniac, and that was around the time that I had my my Honda, I think it was an Accord.
It was.
Yeah, Honda Accord at the time.
Whipping in the 91
I hate that. I don't know why I have to think about it anymore, but yeah, it was when I had the Accord and I had my subs. So those two songs I remember specifically used to bang.
Oh my gosh, Marijuana hits so hard.
And it was only that one hit too. Yeah. Those are good songs.
One of mine was Don't Play This Song, because it's talking about like him wanting to hear it when he's sober.
Yeah.
And like it's almost like that he was saying like it's such a rarity, please don't play it until I'm sober, and that like will never happen. Mm-hmm. Like that's such a dark and desperate time, you know, for him to be, you know, so drug induced that he makes an album like this. I don't even remember. I see the top part. You know, I always forget. You know, he used to put like the little descriptions, like it's on the back of a movie.
Yeah.
What he ends up finding is a dangerous new friend, the Rager, an unstoppable, self-destructive version of himself who won't rest until Scott is numb for good and he's alive forever. Like that is horrifying, dark.
Crazy. That's pretty crazy. Yeah. That makes me want to have something that descriptive, like about my next project. Like,
oh my gosh,
that's amazing in itself.
What else was
even the writing for that? Like,
mm-hmm. When he starts to have trouble adjusting to his new life, our hero Cutter Mescudi, which they do parentheses like Scott Mescudi, aka Kid Cudi, is playing Cutter the hero. That is genius. Goes out in search of a brand new thrill, destined to become numb to all problems and worries. That is horrifying. It's like a horror, and it looks like a horror movie album.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, one of my favorite things, and that's something I think I want to do with mine, is the idea of not having words. It's like it's just a picture that, you know, you make your own idea of, and it's probably hard to see with the reflection.
There it is.
You make your own idea of, but there's no words. Like, I think that's something I wanted to do too.
Of the 4 albums I did get out, none of them had words on the cover.
I've never seen this hard copy.
You've never seen that hard copy? It folds out like
wow, this is cool.
Open it up. It looks really good. It's Because the Internet by Gambino. The hard copy is holographic, and the inside looks really good.
Wow. Is this just like water damage or?
Yeah.
It's not, oh, okay, I was gonna say it didn't come like that, did it?
No.
Okay, I'm taking this in right now, man. I'm not even gonna open it yet. Yeah, this is crazy.
Yeah. Caesar and I, as you can see, really appreciate the physical copies. Really appreciate the art that comes with the album, because it's also the only other than the binding, that's the only letter on it, and that's Glassnote, his label.
Oh wow. Yeah, I wish you guys could see this right now.
Yeah, I know.
I wish they all had their own copy. Mm-hmm. Oh.
Oh, I know.
My mind is blown right now.
Yeah, I know. Oh, the way it opens is very strange. But it's cool. It's, you know, it doesn't list the album other than the binding until the far in the inside.
I'm like genuinely confused right now. Like, this is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
I forgot the album looked like that.
That's cool. I like this pattern.
Yeah.
Colors in the pattern.
I had a geometry teacher who had, shout-outs to Luke Kimmel. He had pictures that looked a lot like that, fractals as he called them, that bordered his entire classroom. See, I don't even remember what this looked like. One of the first times I was really blown away by the wording and the packaging was, well, what was included in the packaging was Channel Orange. Whenever he included his letter about coming out, that was so like well written, well punctuated. I remember like him having short, precise sentences. You're just like, whoa, this is well done.
This is like something that I would like to do with my project. Something, because I hear like even he has revised track credits, like something that came out after probably he printed. Oh, well, it's not. I guess it's not included in there. Did this come out?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was separate.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's a cool case. I'm trying to think.
Which way did you have it in there? Does it matter?
Mm-mm. That will work because it will come out exactly how that one works.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to get my own copy.
And
of
it's
that.
also a cool cover because like the holographic, it just goes to him blurred.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like a black image of him. Like it looks like they almost like just took permanent marker and just colored his hair, color over his eyes, color over his nose and mouth.
That's exactly what it looks like. Yeah. It's like permanent marker.
And I guess since we're running a little short on time, we're just over 2 hours. And my dad's calling me.
Uh-oh.
I have to give him a call back. Tomorrow is his wedding.
Oh, really?
Yep. So, my final album, as we've mentioned, as is on the table, is My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
Okay.
You have to mention it. I do want to pull the packaging out because it, with it coming with the album, and with it coming with Runaway.
Yeah.
Did it actually come with album art too? Oh yeah, it did. I forgot it came with a poster. The Runaway poster, and it had the credits all written out around Kanye.
Which were a lot of credits probably for that album too. I can imagine him.
Just to put it in perspective, this is all the credits for Lost in the World. All of the lights is all this entire column. Monster, not so much. Power is almost a full column. Oh my gosh, Dark Fantasy is half a column. Gorgeous, not so bad. But like the credits are massive. And this is all like the extra stuff. Like you were talking about more of the like the outside of credits. Mm-hmm. And then his favorite album cover, Caesar's favorite album cover, the dancing girl with the wine glass.
They're just so elegant, especially in the video. They're just like moving like. I love watching.
It's almost painful to watch because you watch how like a ballerina dances and they're so like on their toes and thinking about how my toes work. That's not a good thing.
Hey man,
my toes are not made to do that type of stuff. But yeah, I think it's an album you have to recognize. Any others that you wanted to hit on?
Not off the top of my head, no. I wish I had prepared a list, but yeah, that's all I got.
We got good discussion, though. It was good to be able to hit on the different themes of these albums, be able to watch. Yeah, a lot of the people at home watch us really geek out over album covers.
We dissected them pretty in depth.
Anything else you want to hit on? Maybe hit on your album a little bit more.
I was gonna say, all I gotta say is I'm working hard right now, and I'm hoping that it'll be done. I'm hoping that it'll be done soon. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I have to say.
Are you once again releasing it under Marciano?
I think I am. I told somebody the other day that was my rap name, and they were like, "That's not a good name." And that was the first time I've ever heard that. I was like, "Wow." I feel like you can't go wrong with a name that's actually yours. You know?
Yeah. And it's not a common name at all.
Yeah.
You never hear the name Marciano. When I say Marciano, there's only one person I've ever referenced, or whenever I say Caesar. Caesar is another name that's not that common.
That's what I think too, but I don't know. I guess it depends on Hispanic people are more they think it's more common. I've heard some people say that to me, but I actually I had thought about. I remember it was back when I released "Hello, My Name Is Marciano" the mixtape. I had thought about changing my name to, or just adding on to my name and making it Marciano Bravo.
Mm-hmm.
Just like as if Marciano were my first name, because I think that sounds cool too, that Marciano Bravo. But yeah, I think if anything, I would only add my last name. I don't think I would change it though. I think it's too late to change it too.
Yeah.
I mean, after that first project and 5 years later, I mean,
I think depending on how well people know you personally, like I would always know you as Caesar, but if I were to read your album name, I would never read Marciano. I would read your full name, Caesar Marciano Bravo, as I introduced you.
yeah.
Because I know you as your full name, I know you as your rap name, and then I know you as Caesar Bravo.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound appropriate to just say Caesar Bravo. It sounds appropriate for me to say the entire. It's very rare that you say a person's full name regularly, and I say if I'm talking about you, I always say Caesar Marciano Bravo.
I think I've said St. Clair maybe like 3 times in my life. Yeah, but I think I also thought about adding Caesar to it, so Caesar Marciano, but spelling Caesar the same way my Twitter name is spelled, Seezur. Yeah, just because my name is pronounced wrong pretty commonly.
How is Caesar pronounced wrong commonly? Caesar is a common phrase in history.
People always, I get a lot, which is the most annoying, is Cesar.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that's
I
awful.
hate being called Cesar. Yeah, I probably shouldn't even say that because people are gonna joke around and call me that now. But yeah, I hate that pronunciation. But anyway, that's what I thought about that Seezr, just because it's more like foolproof, like that's how you say it, how it looks, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, that would be too long though, Caesar Marciano, and even that, like, I'd imagine, like, I was thinking like maybe on, you know, wherever the side or the cover, like, it just seems too long.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even Marciano is borderline kind of long.
Yeah,
but
4 syllables is a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
you think of artists like Kanye West.
yeah,
That's a full name. That's 3 syllables.
yeah, 3 syllables. Yeah, that's
One of the few artists that really gets it successful off a full name is Childish Gambino.
Yeah,
But yet, I don't hear people saying his full name regularly.
Don't ever, yeah. Hardly ever hear.
His rap name. I'm saying, like, if someone talks about Childish Gambino, they don't say Childish Gambino. Usually, they say Gambino or Childish.
yeah.
I mean, even he calls himself Childish in a lot of songs.
Or Bino. Yeah,
Bino.
I like that nickname. Yeah.
Bino's an awesome name.
Bino's pretty tight.
So maybe down the road, if you take off like Bino did, you can get a.
I cut all I need to do is cut a syllable, man. 'Cause you're right. I got 4 right now.
Be Marcy.
I feel like it's 1 too.
Marcy would be. Marcy's a fun nickname.
Marcy's
It's not
cool. Yeah.
It's not a good full name for.
It's also my aunt's name.
Oh,
so,
that's rough.
Yeah.
That would be confusing. Well, just in family.
I also thought about never mind. But yeah, I gotta cut out a syllable. I'll find some.
Whatever works, and
Yeah.
you've had one, as you've said before, fairly successful release to date. Me prodding one last time onto the new release. How much better do you feel it is?
Then the first one.
Mm-hmm. I know that's hard, because your first one's your baby.
Yeah.
It is your child.
I think it's probably at this point it's at least 2 times better.
Okay.
Yeah. Because with this one, it's kind of the idea of like I'm working on a project. In the first one, it was like, hey, I guess I do have a project. I can piece this together and call it a project.
Mm-hmm.
So this one, it seems like it has that like more of that cohesive feeling to it than the first one. So
yeah.
I was gonna ask you. I didn't mean to ask you this. So I was thinking of the tracks and the track listing kind of stuff, and would it be a shame if I included Nameless on it, man?
Oh, you were talking about doing it as a bonus track for your first.
I did, yeah.
And it is a bonus track.
It is a bonus track, but I never officially re-released it though.
Ooh.
So I kind of like it's in my iTunes as a bonus track.
Yeah.
But I never. It's not. And now that I think about it, you can't even find that mixtape on the internet right now because that link doesn't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of unfortunate because it had all the plays and downloads on it.
Yeah.
So I have to find a new way to do that. But technically, it's not. It never got re-released as it because I was planning on re-releasing it and then labeling that as the bonus track.
Yeah.
But
and I still have both copies. We did a remaster with the auto tune, and we did the we did the original cut.
I have 4 copies of it. Yeah.
4 copies.
Three.
More than the guy who owned.
Yeah, maybe 3 or 4, maybe 3, but I think it's 4 copies of it. Yeah. The worst part is, dude, that with that new Apple Music, they your iTunes tries to like recognize the songs that you have, so it like recognizes the frequencies of that instrumental, and there's some random artist. Does it happen to you too?
It happened on YouTube.
Yeah, there's some random freaking artist that when it's on my iPhone, but when I play it on my iPhone, it's some different song with the same beat, and I'm like, this is so dumb. I'm like skipping it, like, why doesn't it?
Where's Dylan?
It's like, yeah, where's Mr. St. Clair? That sounds weird.
Where's me? Where am I?
Yeah.
I want my name here.
I showed you that video of me performing it at the
Yep. Yeah, that's
acapella.
That's archived way in the backs of our Facebook conversations. But I mean, you have my blessing, I guess. And I guess that as I defended you earlier, I'm now on blast because I'm recorded saying that I'm allowing you to do it. The hard life.
My only thing was just not making it seem like I'm trying to desperate for tracks. But I mean, I generally think it's a good track, and it was released after the fact, way after the fact. So
yeah, that would have been 2 years after the fact.
Yeah.
Well, a full year. We recorded it a full year later, but I think we got.
Damn, it was that long ago.
It would have been May of 2012.
Yeah.
Sounds right. Post freshman year.
It was in that summer, yeah.
It was in that summer.
Early summer, at least. Late spring.
I think if I remember right, we once again ate.
It's probably on that YouTube video somewhere too, like the release date. I bet you when you posted it, it's close to that time.
Yep, you guys will see it in the comments. All right.
See me in the corner.
You see it?
It's fried me, man.
Just put it in your minimize the tab.
Just listen to it.
Work on your homework or work on your work documents or something while you're listening to it, and appreciate what 19-year-old Caesar and 19-year-old Dylan put out.
Maybe like 20, but yeah.
We were 19.
Were we really?
We were 19 when we did it.
That seems like forever ago.
2012. I had just turned 19,
right.
5 months prior.
You're right.
All right, I think we've went at this.
Exhausted our.
You know, it's 9:30.
Yeah, I was like, I know it's like 2 hours now, right? Because we started.
I told you it gets easier. Caesar here was worried how difficult it was going to be.
I'm still nervous. Like, you think I'm not nervous anymore? Like, no.
You did well.
Thanks.
Love having you on.
It's a pleasure, man.
Caesar Marciano Bravo, as I always have to do with full names. Your full name, I have to always reference it. So it was a blast having you on, enjoying some pizza, enjoying some of your favorite beer.
Yeah.
As I do all the time on the show.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. I think you got a good thing going on here, and I really appreciate you having me as a guest and listening to me and having this conversation.
Hopefully in later episodes, I'm able to have you on. Maybe even pre-release, like the week before.
I feel like this is kind of fresh right now.
This is fresh for you, but imagine having a full episode where we bring you out like Ye did at MSG.
That would be pretty crazy.
Have you do like an actual like playing of it?
That would be like a release party. Yeah, that would be
a release party, awesome. And then like have it like actually quality from whatever the source is playing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
So it's not just like that
loud room music.
It's just like and it's kind of muffled.
Yeah,
where they're listening to the source that we're listening to.
That would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool. Let's put that in the. Well, I'll pencil that in.
Yeah, we'll put that in the idea book.
Episode ? TBA.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, man.
Yeah, so that'd be great.
I got a lot of ideas, so
I'm excited. I've always been a fan of the work that you put in and the projects that you do, and
thanks, man.
the vision that you always have, because you always have such high standards of your work.
I do. Such a perfectionist, I swear. It's a hassle.
It's hard.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna call it quits tonight on episode 7. So I'm Dylan St. Clair. That's Bud the Plenty, episode 7.
Awesome, man.
Like I said, it was a blast.
Okay, this is where you better stop recording now. You want me to eat a piece of pizza.